Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started today's training. Just turning off some of this scrolling stuff across my screen. So today we're going to be talking about the 3 steps to winning more contracts. And as we go into this, one of the things that motivated me to share some of the tips I'm going to share, and really behind why I do the training that I do, is that I often hear folks describe government contracting as complex. Oh, it's the federal market is so complex. I actually hear people sometimes say you should start in state and local or commercial first, then come to federal because it's so complex. And I'm like completely the opposite. First off, it's no more complex in the federal space than the state and local, right? They're all just things you have to learn. But in the federal, it is so well defined compared to commercial, it might not even be defined at all. And so when people say that government contracting is complex, I always want to push back and go, well, they're really not. It's really not complex. Things are either known. You either know things, right? Things are either known or they're unknown. And if they're unknown, they feel a little complex. What I think is complex is mapping the human DNA or genome or whatever, right? I'm like, oh my God, that's just so complex. But when I thought about saying that today, I thought, well, my niece, who is I don't even know how to say it, but like a biologist, scientist, right? I'm blowing that completely out, but she deals with this. To her, it's not complex. It's fun. It's exciting because she took the time to learn it and pursue that knowledge in college and then started working in laboratories and developing skills, and she gained experience. And so the human genome or animal DNA, whatever, that's not complex to her. And for us, government contract, it's kind of the same way, right? If you take the time to pursue knowledge behind what you want to learn, the federal market as an example, then you will develop skills. You will be able to identify the skills and then get good at those skills. And through years of practice, you will start gaining experience. And that turns something that was complex into something easy. And that's why I try to do this training, is to make things easier for you to sit there and see that you can have a great success at it. So today I'm going to cover down on 3 particular areas or 3 steps that I want you to pay attention to that can lead to more federal contracts. The first thing is you must have a clear, focused offer. Make it easy for people to know what you sell. The second thing is you need to have strategic relationships with buyers and teammates. These are the very people who will lead you to those contracts, help you learn about those contracts, or help you shape those contracts, et cetera. And so having strategic relationships is vital. And the third thing that we're really going to cover down on, and I think kind of the meat of the 3 steps, is how to write RFIs the correct way, right? RFIs should be leading to business. RFI responses should be helping you win more federal contracts. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about RFIs and how you can write them the right way. Start getting you to think about this. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, which is exactly what I want for you. I have a 7-step process here that I teach, and that process lays out the steps to get to a repeatable, predictable result. Okay, so let's get diving into the 3 steps. The first one that I talked about is having a clear, focused offer. If you've been to my trainings, and I've done over 350 in the last 18 months, right? So I teach every single day, and I come at it from different angles, always fresh. I never take the same slides and bring them forward, because I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm giving you my most current thoughts on whatever I'm teaching that day. And so I've talked a lot about having a clear, focused offer. It's vital. When you have a clear, focused offer, it'll lead to all sorts of success. But I wanted to begin with what is a clear, focused offer, just briefly, right? It's about being known for one thing, being known by others and by your own team for one thing. That's a clear, focused offer. So I put a couple of examples here, right? Is elevator installation and maintenance. I had a customer that was doing construction. They do construction. And when we first started talking, they did flooring, painting, and elevator installation and maintenance. But as we talked, they focused that offer down. It does not mean that they can't do flooring and painting. They still actually do some of that. But what they're selling, their offer, is elevator installation and maintenance, right? Elevator servicing, et cetera. And it's the same thing as you move forward, maybe into professional services and IT, having that focus, right? I just mentioned Julie, I think, cybersecurity and finance. I'd be curious if it's cybersecurity in finance, et cetera. But having, like, here's enterprise network engineering. That's a real tight focus. The impulse might be to add more things on there within the IT world. Or Oracle Enterprise Resource Management. That's really focused. It's not just enterprise resource management, which is focused on its own, but it's Oracle. So we're saying, hey, we're the best at the Oracle product side of it. What I want you to remember about a clear, focused offer is that the tendency is for us to put more on because we're worried about missing out on things. And we call that FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. I want you to avoid that feeling of FOMO as you focus. If you can have a clear, focused offer, you're going to make it easy for others to see what you do. It's going to be able to make it easy for others to help you, right? I just did this with, and I'm just using Julie as an example because I just saw that in chat. I just see it, and I see it in the chat still. I'm not actually looking at chat. It's in my memory, but cyber and Julie, right? And I got finance in there. But it makes it easy for us to remember. This is why I say in the chat, put 2 or 3 keywords. Your focused offer should be able to come down to that 2 or 3 keywords that describe it. It could be one key phrase, right? But hey, this is what we do. When you're able to do that, you make it so easy for those of us who want to make introductions or, tell you, oh, this is the office you want to go talk to because they buy what you sell, et cetera. You make it easy. But if you sit there and say, I sell this, 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 and this, I just get confused. I don't know if you know this, but like when lion tamers, and yes, it's brutal and all that. When lion tamers tame lions, they use a chair. And the reason they use the chair, my fingers are all out of whack, but the reason they use the chair is because the chair has 4 legs and the legs distract the lion. The lion doesn't know where to look. Well, your customer is the lion. In this case, you want the lion to attack you, right? Come at you and take your offer. And so you want 1 leg instead of 4 legs or 5 legs. And that's what I mean by bringing that down and making it easy for others to know how they can help you. It also helps them see in their agency where you fit. So if you're talking to this person and they want to help you, but they don't know what you do, they're not going to be able to do anything beyond that. But if they want to help you and they go, oh my gosh, you do cybersecurity. Well, I'm not cyber, but Jane, she does cyber in our department. How about I just make an introduction or I give you her information? And that's perfect. So now Julie moves on from this person to this person. I'm just using you as an example, Julie, today. For my training. And then the last thing is you make it easy on yourself and your team. I've worked with many different customers where because they don't have a focused offer as a company, the people who are selling their products or supporting their products within the company get a little confused. Are we building this vertical? Are we selling this thing? When I go to talk to the customer, what should I talk about, right? It gets really confusing. But if you can come down tight, I just heard somebody today send me an email saying they're going to even tighten down from cloud to Amazon Web Services, be really tight to one vendor. I love that. There's enough business in Amazon Web Services cloud for a $100 million business eventually for you to get to that stage. But it takes the trust that FOMO is not going to destroy your business. So have a clear, focused offer. By the way, if you haven't done that, do me a favor in the chat while I take water. Just put your clear, focused offer, that key phrase or 2 or 3 words. Okay, so this step I want to go fairly quickly through because I want to save most of my time for the RFI at the end. But in order for you to increase your chances of winning contracts in the federal market, you need to have relationships. People buy from those they know, like, and trust. And when you develop strategic relationships, the very definition of a strategic relationship is the other party knows, likes, and trusts you. That's how you know you've come into a strategic relationship compared to just networking and basic relationships. Your strategic relationships are with people in the federal agency or teammates who know, like, and trust you. They believe in what you say. They look for your opinions. They seek your advice. You're a trusted advisor to them. That's the stage you want to get at with your customers and your teammates out there. So I put a couple of examples here on strategic relationships, right? You can look inside the government and focus on, by the way, I use a term, focus of dissatisfaction, focus of power, focus of receptivity. These are 3 types of people. When you look at all the people, they fall into one of those 3 categories as it relates to customers. And so program office, they're the focus of dissatisfaction. They're the ones with the need, right? And so you want to look into an agency and go, which program offices are ideal and who use or buy what I sell. Then you develop relationships with people who are in there. And then contracting officers, we call these people focuses of power because they have the pen to be able to sign your contract. And so they're the ones you want to identify within your agency who's buying what I sell or related to what I sell. So for example, if I sell cloud services, I'm okay with any contracting officer that is procuring IT services in any way, because somehow or another, they probably know who's going to be buying the cloud stuff. And I want to get in there and build those relationships. These are coming back to hearing about these opportunities early. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then teammates inside the wire. And what this means is teammates who are already one at your target agency, go find the ones that are in your target agency, or even better yet, in your target program office, and build a relationship with them. Help them get to know you, what you sell, where you fit with their goals, and how you two might be able to work together towards an agency. I call this last group of teammates focuses of receptivity. They're not the ones with the need. That's the program office. They're not the ones with the power. That's the contracting officer. So these focuses of receptivity, when you develop a strategic relationship where they know, like, and trust you, then they're going to sit there and be receptive to helping you navigate an agency and begin to get to know people, learn about offices, or get introductions. I've got a whole set of training from a couple weeks ago, I think, that you can go into how to build relationships. If you're in the sustaining membership, I have a whole course on it. But basically, the 3 steps you want to follow to building relationships, strategic relationships out there, is research the agency, really understand, where do I want to build, where do I need to build relationships? It'll be with these 3 groups of people, right? Program office, contracting office, and teammates. But where within that organizational structure? And then the second thing you do is identify people within those offices that you have found. This is very straightforward. Remember, at the beginning, I said, it's government contracting is not complex. And you might think that targeting and finding people and their names and emails and phone numbers is hard. And I don't mean to dismiss the work that's involved, but the reality is it's a process, right? And so you identify the offices you want to get into, and then you begin to do whatever it takes to find people's names. And I teach this in many other previous trainings, but you build this list of folks' names. I've done it recently with brand new offices I'm trying to get into where I never knew anybody, and I can quickly build a list of 100 people. That's 100 people that I potentially can get in, and 16 out of those 100 are going to give me a meeting, right? The way the math works. And so you want to build that target list and then start reaching out and having these meetings that will begin to develop the strategic relationship. Okay, so let's talk about the RFIs, right? And writing RFIs to win. But before we do, I wanted to put them in perspective so that if you haven't seen me talk about this before, you're not overly aware, you've got some context before I talk about RFIs. So RFIs, requests for information, are just part of a market research tool the government uses during their acquisition lifecycle. And so the acquisition lifecycle is the process the government follows to buy something. What I describe the process as is it begins with this idea phase, and it really goes on into the award stage when they award a contract. And so in the acquisition lifecycle, there's basically 2 phases that they go through. There's an informal phase during the acquisition lifecycle and a formal. And so the informal is when they have an idea in their head in the program office. Hey, we want to start rolling out new technology. I heard there's a new way of doing this. We want to roll it out. So the idea pops in their head because they were having a drink at a happy hour. They were cruising the internet, whatever it was. They saw something and they decided to explore it. It's like ChatGPT. Oh, I heard AI is out there and ChatGPT is out there. Now I got an idea that I wonder if I can use AI in my company. That's all informal market research where they have an idea, they start exploring it. They're like, what is ChatGPT, right? It took me 7 weeks to figure out how to say ChatGPT, right? And the way I figured it out, by the way, is get paid today. But it takes them this requirement exploration to start getting an idea fleshing out in the program office. And then it moves into the formal phase. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. The formal phase has market research and then the acquisition for the RFP dropping. And the RFIs and sources sought drop during market research. This is when the government in the formal stage is the most open to hearing from you and hearing what you want to talk to them about. The way you want to shape the technical requirements or the way you want to shape the acquisition approach. And so let me talk to you about RFIs and sources sought, right? And before we go too far into it, I use them a little interchangeable. The government absolutely does, but they're truly 2 different things. And so I'm laughing because even though they are two different things, sometimes the government still switches them and gets them a little mixed up. But basically, request for information is a dialogue with the program office primarily about the technical requirements. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. And a sources sought notice is really the contracting shop trying to see what sources are out there to be able to serve this requirement. What small businesses are out there? Are there women-owned small businesses or 8A firms that could do this work? Are there firms that are on GSA that could do this work and have the past performance, et cetera? They're trying basically to decide how they're going to do the acquisition approach, most generally the set-aside direction that they're going to go. What's the competition type? And when we say that, that means, is it going to go full and open? Is it going to go total small? Or can we set it aside to woman-owned small business or 8A? That's that competition decision that they have, competition approach. And then the RFI, though, which is the meat of market research to me and the part that the government doesn't often do enough of, but a request for information is to have this dialogue around the requirements. There could be two things that they're looking at. Hey, these are the task areas we're thinking are going to be in our performance work statement, our PWS. This is the type of work and the problems we're seeing. What do you think, industry? And give us some feedback. What are we missing? What should we be putting in here? Here's what we're thinking about solutioning, right? We want to build a new hospital and we're thinking about building it out of straw. What do you think? Well, I think straw's one way. You might consider brick. The pigs have figured it all out. Brick's stronger in the wind. It can handle it, right? And so this idea of coming back and engaging with them, you have a chance to do two things. One is to begin to really reinforce the know, like, and trust part, where you are seen as the trusted advisor, because the information you provide back helps them see that, wow, these folks know what they're talking about. They give us really clear guidance. And then the other thing is you're able to demonstrate your interest and your ability to do the work by helping them shape those requirements. And this is what I mean by capture, by the way. When I talk about capture, when most of us talk about capture, we say capture is about shaping an opportunity, and you can shape the requirements, the technical requirements, or the acquisition approach. And so here, this dialogue that you have with an RFI allows you to shape the technical requirements, and the sources sought is where you're really driving into the acquisition approach. Anyways, those are the two RFI and sources sought that are out there. What I want you to keep in mind when you think about writing RFI responses the correct way is to not just respond really, really fast, right? I deal with a lot of people who are looking at how can I use AI to respond faster? It's like AI should not help you so much respond faster. Yes, it's going to speed that stuff up. Yes, there's value there. What AI needs to enable you to do is to get that first draft done, but you still need to be engaged. You still need to be thinking about it, right? So AI is great. I'm not dismissing that at all. But what I want you to think of is you're not trying to get more and more documents out the door first. You're trying to get to a quality document faster rather than more documents out the door faster. And I want you to consider this first tip for writing an RFI the correct way, right? Don't look for compliance. It's hard to miss compliance. We're all going to do it. You shall do this. You shall not do that, right? I grew up being compliant. Don't just make your responses about compliance or meeting the basics. This is ABC about our company type thing. I want you to be compelling, be far more than compliant, be compelling, persuasive. You want them to look at your RFI response when they see it and go, wow, are these guys working for us? Are they an incumbent? How do we get them in? Can we talk to them? This is exactly what we were hoping to get. That's the idea of writing an RFI for a win, right? And I put this here, write it for the win. Don't respond so that you can participate. Write that RFI and that sources sought response so that you can win, so you can take it straight down and win that opportunity. For 8A firms, this is especially valuable because RFIs can come in and the government can just decide to award it directly to that respondent. I have a customer that did it in September, late August and early September, where they wrote an RFI response. 2 weeks later, the government came back and said, hey, we like your stuff. Would you be able to do this work if we set it aside sole source? Yeah. I mean, all of us would say yeah. But that's the whole point. But when she wrote it, she went for the win. She brought in a teaming partner and added them into the RFI response and said, we would work with these people because they have a lot more agency experience than we do, but we bring the requirements cover down. And so that RFI response that she wrote was for the win. And that's what I want you to think is, first off, write for the win. And so the number of responses that you write, my second bullet here, are going to be limited by your ability to make sure that every one that goes out the door must be compelling, and it must be written for the win. There's no point in just writing it if you're going to be compliant, because you'll go into the compliant pile, right? Compliant, yeah, this looks good. Compliant. Wow, that's compelling. I'll put that over there for a second, right? You want to be in the compelling pile, not the compliant pile. Everybody theoretically is compliant. So take it to the next level. The second thing I have here in the middle is write as many as you can going out the door. And I wanted to caveat that, right, by saying write as many as you can for slam dunk opportunities. Slam dunk opportunities are the ones when you look at it, you go, that was written for our company. When anybody in your company looks at it, no one has to rationalize why it's there. We all know that it's there because that's a perfect opportunity for us. So when you're able to identify a source of solder, an RFI that is a slam dunk opportunity, write that for the win and get as many of those as you can out the door. In particular, if you're an 8A firm and you can get into this rhythm, then you're going to find an increased amount of invitations to come talk about direct awards or come talk about, being part of a 3-bid team. Okay, so I put 3 tips here for how you can write RFIs more effectively and how you can kind of get a good handle on this, right? So the first step I want you to do is think about, how are you hearing about RFIs? Too often there's a great RFI, but it's just missed us, right? So get good at having RFIs pushed to you. We call it push and pull. Push means somebody is sending it to you, the tool, a person, whatever. Pull means you have to go look for it. You don't have the time to go look for everything. And so you want to get 99% of the RFIs that are good for you to be pushed your way. And the way you do that is you go into SAM and you set up SAM's got a notification push to you. They'll send an email to you every day, et cetera, saying, here's the RFIs. Me personally, I have a notice that says, send me every RFI. I don't care if it's in construction or IT. It doesn't matter. I'd rather them send me every one. It takes me about 5 minutes at most to look through the titles to find the ones that I like. But I'd rather say no to all the titles than to have the SAM search tool mess it up, So there's other ways you can do this. Connect with your PTAC, right? Those folks got a system in place where they can start pushing opportunities your way. If you're paying for tools, then set up the search. Almost every single one of those subscriptions out there have the ability to push stuff your way. Just refine what's getting pushed. The second thing I want you to do is make sure you have reusable content created. An example is I'm working with a customer and they do administrative support services. So fundamentally, that's about staffing. Even though the government doesn't like to call it staffing, it's staffing at some of these levels. And so one of the things that is almost always going to be in every response is the ability to respond. How your talent acquisition? How can you respond fast to needs from the government? If the government says, I need somebody here and start working next week, could you respond to that? Your write-up in your proposal or your RFI response about that, it doesn't take you long before you've written a couple of them to get it really perfect. So then anytime you have an RFI, you have this piece of reusable content and you move it over, and it really does not need to be unique to the government's request at all. This is our approach. I did this with my last company where we would do SharePoint migration as an example. I'd have a 25-page SharePoint migration plan that I could slide in. And the only thing I did is I changed a bunch of, I did Control F and I changed every name to the customer name so that I could replace them all. And it made it look like it was written for them. And it wowed them. They're like, wow, that's exactly what we're looking for. And if you can do that with reusable content, you make it so much easier to push information out there faster. And as you start using AI tools, et cetera, then the AI can learn from these things that you've written. And then last thing is, my last tip for you on writing RFIs the correct way is make sure you don't write an RFI unless you're going to put in place a plan to follow up, right? You need to follow up relentlessly. I often hear about people who submit an RFI and then they wait for weeks and months and wonder where it goes. It's like, well, don't bother sending it if all you're doing is hoping it'll come back. If you send it, right? I'm okay with you sending it, not knowing anything, but if you send it, commit to saying, I want this opportunity. I'm sending an RFI to communicate to the government that I want it. That RFI is going to be looked at by the contracting staff and the technical or program staff. I am going to pursue this opportunity. And so don't give up on it. Figure out 20 different ways to get into that agency. Figure out what that program office is. This is where you start doing those relationships that I talked about. All those different folks, the incumbents that are in there, the program office folks, the contracting office, the small business professionals, whatever you do, if you're going to write a RFI, RFP response, RFI or sources sought response to the government, then make sure you follow it up relentlessly, because that relentless pursuit, that will be visible to the government and they'll appreciate it. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First thing is, make sure you have a really clear, focused offer. When you do, FOMO will take care of itself, right? You will have other opportunities come right into you once you're in the door, but a clear, focused offer will get you in the door. The second thing is build strategic, long-term relationships in the government and with teammates. You want at least 8, if not 16 out there, so that these people begin to help you start winning more contracts through the knowledge and the interaction that you have. And then the last thing is, when you write RFI and sources sought responses, write them for the win. Hey, if you're looking for any kind of help in your company that's already out there doing $1 million plus, let's say, we have a BD as a service product. Happy to talk to you about it. It's a monthly service, so we can chat about that. And then the other thing is, make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. We are putting out just massive amount of true value for you and in our newsletter. So just go to my profile on LinkedIn and connect with me. If you're not, follow me, but connect to our, or subscribe to our newsletter so that you get this information out there. And for all of us, remember, government contracting is not complex and it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.